What up, naughty steppers? I hope you are all well. I really hope that you're all doing very well and that you're all having a lovely day. But it's about to get even better because it is time for another review, and today I'm going to be talking about the new EP from Chime released on Circus Records, Experience Points. Real name Harvey Thompson, Chime has forged a name for himself as one of the main flyers of the melodic dubstep flag. Arguably showing this most in the creation of his Rushdown label, bringing a multitude of melody-driven artists further into the dubstep limelight such as Rob Gasser, Sekai and Ace Aura. Producing for more heavier-leaning labels in the past such as Firepower and Most Addictive, yet maintaining that intense musical slant over the last few years, and even longer if you're including the evolution from his previous moniker, December. Posing as one of only a few, consistently bringing that bright, colourful and picturesque flavour to the darker side of dubstep production. I'm not talking about string-led introductions or four-note outros that are common in a lot of dubstep music, but incorporating musicality into the dubstep itself, creating a journey with the synths in a drop to lend them that animation and character beyond the robotic sounds that we have all become accustomed to. And this staple element of his technique is undeniably evident across all four tracks on this latest EP, bringing an exhilarating verve to the heavier sounds throughout to give them a more open and inviting appeal. In the first and title track, Thompson supplies us with one incessant hit after another of truly fluorescent, dark bass. So vivacious and brimming with life, taking the track to new heights with every shot of this 8-bit fueled sound. Undeniably frazzling in its aesthetic, but so pure and genuine in what it wants to deliver. All the while being so free-spirited and frantic that you're left completely unknowing as to which directions it's going to go off in next. This is aided particularly by those serotonin-inducing sequences after the original drops, effortlessly carving their own smiley path. And those short vocal snippets before these sections that embellish that warm feeling that pervades this song as a whole. It's a beautiful starting tune. The drop to the second track, Different, moreover, has a very organic feel to it, a real purpose and journey to those notes over the thudding backdrop. Quite soft in its essence, but with those faint evil overtones delivered by those mind-melting lasers in the background, a reminder of Chime's naughtier side. The third track, Face Punch, stays true to its name with a drop that's even more hard-hitting and emphatic than that of the first. In many ways an ode to dubstep legend Rusko, with those thumping acidic wubs, the journeys of which are incredible across both main drops. A little darker than other drops on this EP, especially in its grisly progression, yet still with that luminescence to the effects themselves, lending that brightness to the overall sound. And the short but sweet, helter-skelter banger that is the final track, Double Jump, which possesses an electrifying drop once again full of purpose and colour, and a little bit of a knife party influence with those high-pitched climbing notes. So having that lighter approach with the darker sides of this EP is prevalent from beginning to end. It's as if Chime has run a load of coloured highlighters through the darkness provided by the dubstep genre. Sticking with the drops, another significant thing with them in these tracks is how they are changed up on their second times around in every instance. Working backwards, I feel Double Jump dips back into the heaviness for the right amount of time, the novelty of which isn't lost as a result. With more of those scintillating high-pitched climbing notes, making for a frenzied finale to the dark side of this EP, each one placed perfectly. Face Punch supplies listeners with arguably an even more headbang-worthy drop on its second go, reaching further with fewer notes as they are elongated, giving them a natural swing and bop before returning smoothly to the original sequence once again. In Different, Chime adopts a stop-start framework to add that little bit of variety, all the while becoming more vulnerable in its tone, as if pleading for something from the audience. And I'm left thinking that hardly ever is dubstep so simultaneously forceful and heart-rending. It's quite the mix of emotions and a great representative for the EP as a whole. Finally, with the title track, we have that dizzying moment of feeling knocked out clean by the second drop, leaving the audience very much in a state of limbo, before slamming back into consciousness with more drawn-out tears and the melody-inspired sections built on exponentially with that completely uninhibited attitude. Basically, there's enough going on with the drops alone to constitute as a review. In my opinion, there's just so much going on. They're very rich and have loads to offer. I feel like I've barely scratched the surface, to be honest. Thompson maintaining his place here as one of the most reliable in the game when it comes to switching things up and keeping the listener on their feet. But there are other parts of this EP surrounding the drop sequences that must be discussed too. The introductions are all seemingly video game inspired, very twinkly, very sparkly, classic Chime. Each one telling its own story and creating that airy atmosphere, inviting us into his animated electronic world. Teasing us most in the opening to the EP, with those heavenly underlying notes providing an inkling as to what to expect in the drop. I also really enjoy how this section is reintroduced at the end briefly. Delightful stuff. Just so many feels, God. Also, anyone notice how the end of Face Punch just transitions seamlessly into the beginning of Double Jump? Yeah, that's cool. The only introduction that I feel falls a little short in that respect is the final one from Double Jump, which doesn't seem as sure of itself musically as the others, not leading towards anywhere genuine. But overall, these openings let us know exactly what we're in for, most notably in Face Punch. I mean, those kicks and those cymbals, it's just a classic, old school, vintage, spacey Rusko vibe. The main drawback for me with these 4 tracks comes in the build-ups, which, to my knowledge, comes as not the biggest surprise. With Harvey explaining in a recent interview I did with him that constructing build-ups was his least favourite part of the production process. And I must say there's an extent to which that shows here, moments where a little bit more composure and patience could have been had to lend the EP that extra epic gleam. And returning to Face Punch once again, I think this issue is most evident in this track. That scratchy muffled sequence with the wubs hardly in focus, somewhere in the distance, it sounds great. Could it have been longer? Setting up that electric flute, snake charming moment just before the drop, which I also feel could have been a bit longer in itself. In the process, highlighting the contrast between the happier and more sinister aspects of this track overall. Just maybe having each of those sections run for potentially twice as long to increase the tension before that blockbuster drop. But to be honest, the succinct nature of this section overall does well to give the song an in-your-faceness about it beyond the drop. It's short, but it's well managed. I also feel like the build leading towards the second drop of Different, following that lovely vocal manipulation section, could have been extended. But on the back of that weighty midsection, this may potentially have taken too much away from the heavier parts of this track provided by the drops. Who knows? And to be honest, aside from those instances, the builds are really nice on this EP. Sticking with Different, I like some of the lyrics here, particularly, but when I hear the colours drain from the air, I despair. Oh, blissful. Which could be Chime commenting on his laments for the lack of colour, musicality and personality in dubstep music at large. Or maybe that's just me looking way too far into it. Furthermore, that time-stopping moment in the opener, leaving momentarily before returning in jovial, bubbly fashion, gears us up for whatever is to follow. And that little bleep just before the drop. Real nice touch there, Mr. Thompson. Additionally, I think the build works well for Double Jump as a way of introducing that musicality to the track, seemingly absent from the introduction. The brevity of which works really well, dissimilar to others on the EP, that breakbeat percussion before the drop, creating a nice tableau effect. So I think maybe it's more the case that the builds don't match up generally to other aspects on this EP, which, as I've explained, isn't to say that all of the builds are lacking, because some of them are great. It's just the standards set by the drops and introductions here are so high that any slight blip is going to be quite noticeable. Because that's the thing with this EP, I'm genuinely finding it difficult to find many points of fault for it at all. Each of the 4 tracks is full of might and purpose and delivers on several fronts. It makes a real statement and has so much going for it, always going the extra mile to take his sound to the next level, each song leaving a real impression. Incorporating past trends and recent trends and seemingly everything in between, it's a fantastically well-assembled piece of work. Doing the job of an EP and bringing together a collection of bangers that have a linearity and consistency to their sound and propensity to throw you off your seat. Not to mention the fact that he brings both melody and heaviness in abundance and equal measure. He's made everyone happy. Virtual Riot? take note. Genuinely so easy to get the musicality wrong with tunes like this, but the chord progressions and note journeys are pretty much spot on throughout. Spot on in the sense that they move you, they create character, they tell a story, they lead off into unknown destinations which, when they come around, take you by surprise. Just think for 1 second about how difficult the creation process is, how difficult it is to make one sound, how difficult it is then to make one idea, and then a few ideas, and then one whole track, and then doing that 4 times over. Going through that process in your head makes it all the easier to appreciate just how hard it is to make a good EP overall, let alone just any 4 tracks, and Chime does the former very well here. The kind of EP where there is so much going on that you get more and more out of it with each listen. I mentioned that I could do a review on the drops alone, but this also stands for the introductions, the builds, the musicality. It's just a fantastic amalgamation of sounds from start to finish. Mixing light and dark, uplifting and menacing with ease, almost bipolar in its combination of these drastically different emotions. However, they are not simply put alongside each other, but integrated, the light becoming part of the dark, and vice versa. I mean, shout out all of the other producers bringing that vivid musicality to the darker sounds in dubstep production, you know, Panda Eyes, Temanite, Oliverse, Fox Stevenson, to name but a few. And the Brig, I cannot forget to mention him, what a fantastic producer he is. And Xylent, can't forget him either. Bloody hell, there's quite a few of them, aren't there, actually? But for me, Chime stands as the flag bearer for that approach, invaluable to the scene for what he believes in, dipping into certain trends but forever adhering to his own style, technique and aesthetic. An enthralling first of a collection of EPs to come from Thompson this year, apparently as many as 4, the next one coming in just a couple of weeks. Now, in terms of my favourite from experience points, then I would have to go with the title track, but there is some background to this. Face Punch runs it very close, but I had inadvertently heard of it before the EP came out in full, which I don't usually do, and didn't mean to in this case. Therefore it wasn't fresh to me when I heard this EP in full for the first time. And of those remaining 3 that I was hearing for the first time, not only was it my favourite of the bunch, but also one that I'd been waiting to hear in full for a while since hearing Chime play it live at Work Bar a couple of months ago. If I seem to remember correctly, it was the song that he started his set with. I don't know if anyone can verify that for me, or maybe even Chime himself. And the term instantly fell in love is bandied about a lot, but I can honestly say that I fell in love with this track as soon as I heard it. The way the surrounding sections envelop the drop so well, the trajectory of the notes in the drop, all the while bringing that screechy heaviness too, it's just got so much going for it. And I have plenty of other positive notes on the track that would literally make this video minutes longer, so they'll have to wait for another time. Wink wink, nudge nudge. And in terms of recommendations, if you enjoyed this EP, then I would look at Myro and Sekai and all of the aforementioned artists, including Temanite, with whom Chime has a collaboration coming soon on the former's upcoming album. Before the outro, quick, massive thanks to Harvey for getting this EP to me prior to release. And so that is that for another bumper review on the Nawtystep channel, this time of Chime's new EP Experience Points, released on Circus Records. Thank you very much, and as always, for tuning in. Be sure to leave a comment with your thoughts on the EP. What did you guys enjoy about it? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, then give it a big old thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, hitting the notification bell along the way so that you can be notified whenever I upload to the Nawtystep channel. Next to my head, there should be some other dubstep reviews on the channel, so be sure to check those out too. And don't forget to like and follow Nawtystep across all social media if you haven't already. With everything linked, including those recommendations, in the description box down below. And lastly, if it's naughty, then you know guys, so be sure as always to keep it naughty and stay safe. And I shall see you all in the next one. Peace out.